seeking refuge, a place to be, a place to stay. And is that a fundamental right? Before people talk shit about America a lot because there's no healthcare, like what about food and a place to sleep even before healthcare? We talk about healthcare as a right. Well, how can that be a right and not food and a place to sleep, which are at the base of someone's health and mental health and well-being, the two things, eating well and sleeping well. So we're all talking about, oh yeah, healthcare is that right? Well, what about?
I was just walking on the street coming back home to my studio, and I saw this really nice piece of furniture, and I thought, yeah, let's look at it, whatever. And then I started talking to a guy that was right next to it and asked if I could take it. And he lives on the street, so he usually sleeps right next to where the furniture is. And we started talking. He was like, oh yeah, just take my cart, my grocery cart that they, just walk around and do it here in Barcelona. And they carry a lot of stuff and you can take it. So I just brought a beautiful table, really nice, really heavy. And then I went back to give the cart back, and we started talking, and I recorded a little bit on my GoPro.
¿Me entiendes? Allora, esempio, donde tengano casa popolare, vuol dire, no? Tengano anche alberghi con chi lavorano, con quale alberghi lavorano o con hostel che loro pagano, mi intendi? Magari tengano anche sua, non so. Esempio, qui tiene casa popolare.
Sì, io lo mire, sì.
Pagano 80 euro al mese,
80.
100 euro.
He was just telling me a little bit of the situation of homelessness in Bosnia, that he's from Bosnia, that doesn't exist, that people are like, oh, come and sleep at my house. It really made me realize that it would be nice to have a reflection on what happened to me in Lisbon. It reminded me how it all started and the reason why it all started and the idea of it. This was in 2016, 2017. I was living in Los Angeles and I was working at a cafe that was open 24 hours, and I would have the shift from sometimes 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. but other times it would change a little and I would leave at 3 or 4 or whatever in the morning. And every time I would bike home, and I remember having really deep conversations. They were not conversations just like, everyday conversation, not interesting. They were deep, and there were usually people that could really think and have something to say, some critical thinking going on. I was like, wow, this is really, and it would be like a friend conversation and a friendly conversation. And I remember one guy really hitting me deep. It was about 4 in the morning, I think, or 5, maybe actually 6, because I remember biking and the farmer's market being set up at the very beginning, so 5 or 6. And I see this guy in a wheelchair struggling to actually go up to the curb and on the sidewalk to do anything. And I stop and I'm like, do you need help? Do you need anything? He's like, oh no, I just have a long way to go. And I didn't really recognize him, but I knew where he was going, because I knew that further down the road there was like a place where people were, and I knew I could get a feeling that he was from there. So I know, wow, you still have a long way. So what we did, which was so awesome, we grabbed like a stick or something, I don't remember what it was. And so he grabbed a stick, and as I would bike, he would come after me with his wheelchair. And we just did that for like at least a mile, I'm sure, like that. And we were both so tired, but he was so like amazing. And then we just had a conversation about his life and why he was like that. Also for me, the experience of understanding how someone in a wheelchair goes through these situations, and how nice he was, and how he had such a beautiful smile. I think he was a veteran. Yeah, I think if I recall, he was a veteran. That's why he was in a wheelchair. And most of our conversation was also about like his struggle of, the curbs in Los Angeles not being, some of them are okay, but it's just so hard for someone like him to go around a lot of blocks and to do so many things and so many stairs, and there's so many parts that the sidewalks are completely damaged and he has to go to the street. And so anyone and anything can teach us something. That is the premise of this. And the second, that everyone can contribute to the same truth.
Like, consciousness use evolution to discover itself, or did evolution create consciousness as a mean to develop itself?
This is the ancient question of which came first,
Yeah.
consciousness or matter.
Best survival adaptation.
Exactly. Yeah.
In form of success.
Yeah.
That's what capitalism was trying to do.
In like artificial life or just evolutionary things, that like death is extremely important, because if you have something that sticks around for too long, you never have the chance for it to try something else out and adapt to new circumstances. So you need death.
Like the anger is there for an adaptive purpose. It like would not have persisted, evolutionarily speaking, unless it had served some sort of purpose.
Entonces, ¿para ti crees que la evolución es una cosa continua? Que siempre...
Sí, desapareceremos y iremos apareciendo otras
siempre.
cosas. Una forma de vida. Sí.
Infinitivamente.
O sea, igual esta forma de mundo desaparecerá, al final acabaremos explotando, si no variamos, volverán a haber dos átomos que se juntarán y crearán otra forma de vida igual.
Like, based on everything that we know with human evolution, psychology, what's better as a starting point than seeing somebody for where they are and the pain that they're in?
Yo me creo a mí mismo cada día como tema evolutivo de la conciencia y de espiritualidad.
And so Angelo is the kingdom conversation was not the first conversation I recorded, but the conversation and the confirmation that I had to do this, and that I was gonna be able to do all things at the same time. Think about the sound, think about the 2 or 3 or 4 cameras that I want, the person that is gonna be next to me, and still be present in a conversation. And it took me like a week or 2 to recuperate a little bit because of all the intensity that it was and all the things that he told me. But I think, once again, he can think, and he is a thinker, and is not the first person that I've met that is on the street that is a thinker. And as a thinker myself, I obviously have a lot of empathy for them. And not just empathy, but I understand how they are in that situation. So there's like this, almost like, obviously I'm doing this for myself and for my show, and because I think we could all benefit from everyone's perspective. And I think that makes the world, and my world and your world that you are watching this, richer, but also because I think it would uplift them to have a little bit of attention, to have a little bit of a stage, a little bit of a voice in society. And I think that's what happened with him in this conversation, the kingdom. And I know that his thoughts are sometimes all over the place, and the sound has, the noise is a bit harsh and hard to listen to. But I didn't edit that much on purpose, so that you also experience a little bit of what these people who are on the street go through, the noise that they listen constantly. The experience of going into that conversation is going into Angelo's mind, his frequency. And I know now that I'm speaking in English, and you're going to watch it in Portuguese, might be weird, but turn on the subtitles and see how...
Isso é uma frequência. É tudo popular, o vosso cérebro consegue capturar frequências até 452 Hz. Isso é a mesma coisa com a música.
Once we go deep into conversations, and once we let go of the shallow conversations, none of those things seem to matter. None of these social classes, none of these societal norms, it doesn't matter. Once you go deep enough and you have a deep enough conversation, especially once you go into the atoms, into the universe, none of that seems to matter. The conversation gratitude, it's also shot on the streets. There's a place in Lisbon that a lot of people live under this like bridge, super noisy, next to like train racks. It's just like, I don't know how that happened. There's just like a white space. There's a bunch of tents a lot of immigrants, also a lot of Portuguese people. There's just a mixture there. And I would bike there a lot because it was right next to a dumpster with a lot of paint. All the things that I use for my paintings and for my art come from this container that just had a numerous amount of paint that I could just grab and then take home. So I would bike there, fill up my bike with that, and then go back. And I would just see all these people almost all the time. They would get together and do bonfires and stuff. And so one day I was like, all right, I'm gonna go and talk to them. And that's what happened in Gratitude, which I thought it was so cool. And then as I was walking away, Angelo shows up. He's like super tall, almost like 2 meters tall. That would be like 6 something feet, 6'2", I think. And I see him, like, he recognized me. He doesn't know my name. And that's the intro of the second conversation, which is called Universidade da Vida, which stands for University of Life.
Como é que se chamava? Eu disse, como é que se chama? Como é que eu me chamo?
And once again, it's just like we just have such a deep conversation, such a good understanding, such a soul connection. And I truly ask, like, do you want to insert yourself in society? And that's when I think is the most important part of this conversation, is that I think he teaches a lesson of what is really going on, is because...
Tu achas que nunca vais querer te inserir na sociedade? Tu estás confortável e estás bem da maneira que estás na sociedade, neste momento? Da maneira como vives no teu dia-a-dia?
But he basically says that there's something related to his purpose of life and to what he's doing here. And so I guess once we find that out, which for me was through meditation and through practicing the art of meditation every single day, the first thing you wake up in the morning, you do it. And I know that if this community grows enough, and if this is something that you're interested about and you want to, in a way, participate in and help, this show will do that. It will be definitely an aim and an end and a goal of this episode is not just going to be just gather information. It's going to be actually have a solution. The cost, what would the cost be to resolve this issue of our society? Because I think it reflects such deep things inside of us, like Teresa mentioned in the conversation, refúgio.
Não é tirá-las da rua, porque muitas nem querem sair da rua. Se tu tivesse a oportunidade de falar com essas pessoas, elas gostam de dormir debaixo do céu das estrelas e não ter que prestar contas a ninguém, ou têm problemas de saúde mental mais graves, ou estão abandonadas pelas famílias, ou 1000 razões pelas quais tu um dia vais parar às ruas, porque viste violência, geraste violência, eu não sei. Com as pessoas que convivi até hoje, que viviam na rua, todas têm a sua história, e a minha história poderia, se eu não tivesse as pessoas que tenho à minha volta, ter ido parar não muito longe daquilo.
Eu também senti isso, claramente.
It's really deep, and we reflect it and we see it, and we know it could be us. We know, and I know it's almost impossible to go through this or to see you on the street and not be affected by it. Maybe right now some people are like, oh, I don't care, but it's almost impossible because of this love confident that we all are.